Collaboration systems are taking center stage with many law firms. Whether you already have one implemented or in the process of rolling one out, close attention to risks and governance issues should be top of mind. Michele Gossmeyer is in the studio today sharing her insights and experience doing exactly that. Welcome to Law Firm Weekly. It's great to have you here. Michele Gossmeyer is Global Director, Information Governance, Risk and Compliance with Dentons. Before joining Dentons, she was a Global IS Administration and Communications Manager at Mayer Brown. Michele, welcome to the studio.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Shai.
Do you still have your cat around, or, there's vacation nowadays?
He has taken the break for today. But if we stay on long enough, he may find his way back to the camera.
Fantastic. Yeah, why not? Cats. They should absolutely be part of this interview. No doubt about it. And you know what? Talking about interviews and working from home and cats and so on and so forth, is there one or two things that you're really missing not going to the office every day?
Happenstance hallway conversation is something that I miss, although I do feel like we're doing a good job of that with video at our firm. We do a lot of video calls. I'm on video almost all day long. So there are some happenstance conversations. But oddly enough, I think I also a little bit miss the commute. Not the hours of it, but just the interaction being in downtown in the city. So I think those are probably the two main things.
What, you don't miss the coffee?
No, I can get the same good coffee at home.
Nice. Excellent. That was the right answer for the host, for the folks at the office that are responsible for it. We are here to talk about risk management and information governance. And before we dive into the thick of it, which is how does it affect and should be applied to collaboration systems, are there any particular risks that you're handling or that you're dealing with that are COVID specific? That as a firm, that is your bailiwick. This is your responsibility, either internally, externally, with your clients, in general terms.
Sure. I think the main thing is probably just the pace at which we had to adjust, right? Normally we have a little bit of a longer planning time to adapt to things. COVID was a pretty quick turnaround, right? Within, matter of hours and days rather than weeks and months. We had to have things ready for people to just work remotely as everybody else did. So fortunately, we were pretty well set up to do that. We had a couple locations where we had to add a little bit more capacity, obviously train people, get them more comfortable. But fortunately, our firm leadership is pretty focused on that and very supportive of it. So it's not just kind of the IT people sitting in the background making difficult decisions, but really doing that as a collaborative group. So it's been a challenge, but lots of good learning coming with it, that's for sure.
So let's kind of move into this area that I wanted to cover today, and that's collaboration systems, which obviously their adoption is accelerating now for all the right reasons and obvious reasons. We can talk about specific platforms like Microsoft Teams as an example, but I can only imagine that the foundations and the fundamentals apply to any collaboration system worth its salt. And what I mean by worth its salt is that it's connected to other back-end systems in the firm, like document management system, portals, and so on and so forth. What, in your mind, are the unique concerns that people should have when they're considering deeper implementation of a collaboration system?
Yeah, I think for us, what we've found, and we're certainly not the experts, but we're working our way through it. I think for us, it's the complexity of the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 suite in general. So typically, if you think about you're going to implement a SharePoint portal or you're going to implement a collaboration or like a video platform, you typically think of those as kind of one system. Whereas in this scenario, it's kind of all of those all at once, right? So typically Teams is the impetus to starting to move forward. People want Teams to collaborate. But what we found out as we, started this endeavor quite a while ago, you don't just create a Teams platform, right? You create a Teams site that then gives you a OneDrive site or a OneDrive platform. It gives you a SharePoint platform. It gives you all of these different places. So when you're thinking you're making a decision about how to handle data on one component of this, you need to realize that it really touches a whole bunch of other systems, and you need to be thinking about the implications of that across all of those systems.
So is it that different than any other information governance, risk management strategy with any other system in the firm? Is it because of the fact that there's all those components that kind of are bundled in, and therefore you need to kind of think about each and one of them and how they're kind of all working together? That's kind of the first part of my question. The second part is, to what extent should that be part of the, I think I know the answer, but part of the planning and thinking on choosing which collaboration platform you want to take on?
Sure. I think that the governance component of it is the answer is it kind of depends. So if you have a strong governance program, process, function within your firm, for us, part of that process was don't try to rethink everything just because it's a new platform, right? Throughout the process, a couple of different times, we would have to remind ourselves, wait a minute, we already have governance in place for this type of thing. Keep those same governance structures in place and apply them to the new systems. But in areas where maybe your governance either needs a little bit of work or maybe in some cases isn't in place, it's a great opportunity to use this to adopt those processes, procedures, and structures because they really are needed in a platform that can be as complicated as the Microsoft suite.
Yes, and clearly as you go through this process of both selecting and then implementing and planning for it, you want to have the information governance and risk people around the table naturally, which essentially also represents the, general counsel internally and their thinking around the kind of exposure they're willing or not willing to take for the firm as a whole. And you're, I'm sure, representing that, around the table when it's being discussed. Maybe, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to respond to that. That is one of the key things that we got out of our external engagement with the trusted partner. One of the first recommendations they had was to establish a fulsome governance committee that has all of those different players at the table. So we have several members across the globe from our general counsel, data privacy teams, customer support, technical components, all of those different groups. And we have regular meetings every 2 weeks. So that way, if something comes up, we know we've got a platform to be able to address that, have the right people at the table, and be able to go through some of those challenges rather than, okay, now we have to figure out how to get those people together and have a meeting. And, sometimes that can take a very long time. So that's been super helpful to expedite some of our decisions and help us get through some of the pieces that we need to.
Maybe the last question I have is actually going down into the weeds just a little bit, and maybe you can give us some prime specific examples, doesn't have to be specifically from your firm, of the kind of issues that you believe people need to think about specifically around information governance, the use of knowledge, the use of documents, data that comes from other systems. What are the riskiest parts that you want people to think about, maybe kind of more in the weeds this time?
Yeah, I think 3 things probably come to mind for me, Shai. The first one is, law firms in general. Most every firm has some form of document management system that is kind of central to everything that they do. Some firms have different levels of adoption and how those tie in. But thinking about it in the context of what does this new platform mean, right? Because right now there's not a super clear, easy way to integrate a document management platform into the new environment. But thinking about what does this mean, right? So if your document management system is still your system of record, how do you make sure those files get back in outside of the Office 365 platform, or at least having those conversations and thinking that through. I think secondly is structure around who can create your sites and how they can be created. Don't just open it up so that everybody can create team sites willy-nilly all over the place. So we have a very structured workflow for how you request those sites, and only certain administrators within the different regions can create those sites. So that helps quite a bit. And then thirdly, of course, is just reviewing detailed security controls and understanding how do you want to set up that environment? How do you want it configured? So, what happens? Who can access your meeting settings? How can those be changed or configured? Locking down those settings and understanding what they are within the platform and working through some of those challenges, so that it's maybe starting out conservatively, and then as you practice with the platform and you understand how it works in your environment, maybe you can open some of those things up if there's restrictions that are causing challenges. But I think in this case, definitely helpful to start conservative and work your way the other way, rather than opening it up and finding yourself in a whole big world of trouble.
Well, that sounds great, and really a perfect summary for our conversation. I have to tell you, I'm a little sorry that your cat did not jump across the frame. It would have been nice to see that cat or two jumping through the frame. So thank you so much for taking the time, Michele. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's great to see you again, Shai, and thanks for inviting me.
Of course.